listening to Michael Savage Archives on Really Big Something Channel. September 8th, 2009.
There's another song on that album that they played quite a bit, Blackbird.
On my website.
There's a verse in the song Blackbird about blackbirds fixing their wings, rising up and flying. So Manson told his family that by Blackbird, come on, we know what the Beatles are talking about. They're talking about the black man. And they're telling the black man to rise up against the white.
Post-Labor Day edition of the Savage Nation, playing Helter Skelter by the Beatles from the White Album, because last night the History Channel ran a documentary, on Manson, the murderer, the mass murderer, the butcher. And I was fuming by the end of it because they had a woman, Linda Kasabian, who was given, exonerated, basically no sentence for turning state's evidence against Manson and his family. I was so angry by the end that this woman got away with murder herself. I mean, she was there. She participated. I was fuming. I understand how the law works, and we understand that the law is an ass, especially if you read Samuel Johnson, which most of you don't know who he is, but Samuel Johnson said the law is an ass, and he was right. Nothing's changed in 300 years. The law is an ass. But let's get back to the History Channel documentary, Manson. Ladies and gentlemen of the Savage Nation, if you saw it, will you please raise your hand? Now, of course, I can't see you, but I'll ask you to raise your hand because I have an imaginary audience. And we had Vincent Bugliosi, the prosecutor of the Manson family, saying that Manson was fixated on the race war that was coming to America. Black against white, white against black. And that he thought that the Beatles were reading his mind and picking it out of his mind. I mean, he was crazy, deranged. But, here's the big but. When I watched that scene, those scenes set on the Spahn Ranch, 1969, in Los Angeles, the old Hollywood movie set of a Western town, and saw the Manson family with the slut hippie chicks and the guys and the drugs and the sex and the rock and roll. And I remembered that time very well. The drugs, the sex, the rock and roll. And I look at what's going on in this country today, and I look at what Obama's done to this country in only 6 months. I ask myself if we're not almost near a helter-skelter mentally, because this man was sold to us as a uniter. But can you name a president in modern American history who's divided the races more than Obama has thus far? I'm asking you a question. It seems that almost everything he does creates tension between races rather than bringing races together. Now, you may say, well, that's because the right wing continues to read the wrong things into the left wing. The left wing only wants social justice. The left wing only wants the poor to benefit. The left wing only wants a fair distribution of wealth. Well, my friends, the Bolsheviks in 1916 were agitating for the very same things in Russia. And, of course, they brought about the Bolshevik Revolution, which was the Communist Revolution. Pol Pot in Cambodia, I want to remind you who he was. Pol Pot, Cambodia, professor, goes to Paris, studies Marxism, comes back a radical professor, introduces Marxism to Cambodia. He stirs up the youth of Cambodia. He puts red rags on their heads called the Khmer Rouge, and they become bloodthirsty murderers like the Manson family. They kill the middle class. Anyone with eyeglasses is fair game. And so you see a mountain of skulls in Cambodia after the nice Marxist professor Pol Pot got through with Cambodia. The teachers, the doctors, the lawyers, the social workers, the engineers and the professors were either forced to death laboring in the fields or killed outright by the Khmer Rouge. In the very same way, on a microcosm, that the Manson family killed middle-class people because of their hatred of their class warfare. And so you say, well, what does one thing have to do with another? And I'll let you put two and two together. If you can't do it, I can't help you. See, if you can't put two and two together, I can't tell you how to add up to four. Now I want to move on to another topic that's not directly related, except in a tangential manner. And that is the Van Jones question. As you may know, Van Jones was a street agitator in the Bay Area for many years, and he was picked without vetting by the FBI, without vetting by the Secret Service, without vetting by Congress, and plunk put into the job of being Obama's czar, Green Czar, one of 30-some-odd czars. Czar. in America, Tsar. Tsar Nikolai. See Bolshevik Revolution everywhere you turn, helter-skelter. Tsar Nikolai. So he takes a guy off the streets who's, one of his jobs was agitating police, agitating against the police, running cop watch, harassing police for many years in the Bay Area, and he's put into the White House. Now you say, well, he was brought down by Fox News and the hemorrhoid. And you're right, he was. But what you don't know is, and what you have to know is, first of all, my hat's off to Fox News for standing by their man. That's more than I can say for the media standing by this man. But I'm glad that they have the power. I'm glad that Roger Ailes and company have the power to stand up to the Obamaites. We need them. But what you don't know, and I want to set the record straight with this, is that Savage was given no credit for Van Jones's story, yet I was the first in the media to expose him and his background. In fact, if you go to March 12th, 2009, you will find in the archives Michael Savage's monologue, From Brown Shirts to Green Shirts. You don't know anything about this because the Hem and the Fox crowd refuses to acknowledge anybody, never mind just me. WorldNet Daily ran story after story after story. Aaron Klein of WorldNet Daily for the last couple of months has been running story after story after story without a scintilla of credit from the hemorrhoid. And so you have to understand that we're not all on the same team. You may think we are, but we're not. But we have to live with what we have. And again, thank God Fox News has the power to defend their own. They didn't do it for any reason other than to defend their own, and they did. And my hat's off to them. But just for historical reference, know that Michael Savage was the first on March 12, 2009 to point out this Van Jones story in the monologue From Brown Shirts to Green Shirts. And I expect no credit whatsoever from the hemorrhoid. So there it is. Again, if you're back from your summer vacation, go to michaelsavage.com for this monologue, which you can read. And you will see a picture of my new book, Banned in Britain. And I just learned today from the British government through my attorney that they refused to remove my name from the list. This is the same corrupt socialist labor government of Gordon Brown that just released the Lockerbie bomber for oil. This is the same corrupt Gordon Brown administration that has linked up Michael Savage's name with known murderers and terrorists, a crime against a member of the American media that is covered by scant few and is not covered by Fox News. But you can read it. And you could read how the United Kingdom banned Savage for oil by going to michaelsavage.com. You could see the preface, table of contents, and excerpt, and order the book now because it's a first printing, first edition, available nowhere else. Now, I want to go back to the beginning on the show. I got enough to cover right now for 3 days. I got enough to cover on this show for 3 days without taking one call. But as in the past week or two, if you've been listening, I'm going to be giving out copies, free copies of Banned in Britain to every caller. You won't get the book for about 8 weeks, but you will get a copy of the first edition, first printing of this hardcover book when it's out. So if you want to get online, get on now because the lines are going to be jammed all week. We go back to 1969. It was a crime that shocked the nation. Drug-crazed hippie Manson family butchers gorgeous pregnant movie star Sharon Tate, wife of Roman Polanski, and guests in her house, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and a man by the name of Frykowski at Tate's home. They tie them up with rope, and they butcher them alive. Human beings, hippie chicks, patchouli oil, hairy underarms, no underwear, wild sex, LSD, drug, sex, and rock and roll, love the earth, love Gaia, I love the world, let it all hang out, don't repress your feelings, let it all hang out. Why not do it in the road? Let's all make group love. Man, man, woman, woman. Let's all do it in the road. And the next thing you know, they're butchering people at will in the streets, in the hills of Hollywood. Now you say, what does releasing inhibitions have to do with the show today? What does it have to do with healthcare? What does it have to do with Obama? What does it have to do with anything? It has everything to do with what we're living through. Virtually everything we are suffering through right now is a direct result of the hippie era. Were it not for the hippie era, there would be no Obama. Were it not for the hippie era, we would not be living in tyranny right now, and we're only a hairbreadth away from losing our First Amendment. And once we lose our First Amendment through backdoor tactics, such as banning Michael Savage in Britain and then getting the blowback going here, once they get through banning the First Amendment, they're going to go for the Second Amendment. you won't have any rights altogether. Keep up the pressure. Don't let up. Don't fall for the lie. Don't let Rahm Emanuel bulldoze you. These are very dangerous people. They want you to be a serf. Make no mistake about it. It started with the hippie era. Some would say it started earlier than that. Some would say it started with Eisenhower. Some would say it started when the great General MacArthur, who wanted to bomb the dams in China because he saw it was coming, was fired by Eisenhower. But I won't go there because it's too far back for you to connect it up with Helter Skelter and things of that nature. So let's go back to the hippie era, which I'm sure you can relate to because that's got a sexy tone to it. Eisenhower's white Republican, nothing sexy there. MacArthur, just a war hero, nothing sexy there. World War II, boring. We saw it. We saw Saving Private Ryan. Move on. We want something sexy. Patchouli oil, hairy underarms, sex everywhere. Why not do it in the road? Flimsy dresses, rock and roll. Let's do it in the road. Bam, here we are with Obama. I'll be right back. We are talking about 1969 and 2009. And the arc from 69 to 09, how we went from the Manson family to what we have today in America. You say, what, are you crazy? Where's the linkage? Well, if you don't understand the linkage, you don't have the intellect to understand the linkage, and I can't help you with it. It means your mind is a blank, which is a reflection of the fact that your mind has been brainwashed. See, brainwashed has a meaning. It means your brain has been washed of history. Your brain has been washed of the past in order to make you a new man, the new man that every dictator needs, the new American, the new man American. By the way, those of you who live in the San Francisco Bay Area have been following the closure of the San Francisco Bay Bridge in order to permit the doofuses at Caltrans to spend $1 billion of tax money to build a temporary side ramp. Unbelievable. I mean, this could have been done in probably 3 months with the right amount of people, without the regulations that they put in place for red tape. Anyway, go to michaelsavage.com. There's a picture that I took on Sunday evening out on my boat with 8 friends as the sun was falling from the side of the bridge. You won't believe this picture. It's better than any newspaper picture in America. I challenge any AP photographer to beat this picture. Nobody has construction. I'm going to put a new one up every day. We went out in the boat around 7 o'clock. And we got to the bridge just as the sun was falling out onto the ocean, obviously. And the light was so perfect. I got out my little camera, my little Sony camera. The digital quality is like 7 gigabytes. I don't know what it is, really. It's good, though. It looks like a giant erector set. It was very exciting. But here's the thing. They closed down the whole Bay Area for 3 days to put up a screw or a temporary whatever. I go there Sunday night at 7 o'clock. There are 4 men working on the bridge. Not 40, not 400, not 4,000. 4 men. You had to strain your binoculars to see 4 schmucks from Caltrans. But wait, there were several boatloads of supervisors floating around under the bridge with hard hats, looking up to see if the men were okay from a safety point of view. 4 guys were hammering something up there, closed the whole bridge for this. And you wonder why it's $1 billion. You wonder, you schmuck you? You don't know what corruption means? You don't know what corruption means? You talk about a broken economy with a busted dollar? And you think it's limited to the Bay Bridge? You're wrong. Did you see what came out today? Michelle Obama has 26 servants. That's right. Michelle Obama has 26 servants on her staff. Cost $1.75 million a year without benefit packages. 26 servants for the First Lady. Did you hear what I just said to you? And you don't know what's going on? Here's Michelle Obama's quote. In my own life, in my own small way, I have tried to give back to this country that has given me so much. That's why I left a job at a big law firm for a career in public service. She has 26 servants. Michelle Obama. $172,000 for the chief of staff, all the way down to Delia A. Jackson, Deputy Associate Director of Correspondence for $36,000. 26 servants for the First Lady, and you wonder why the economy is broken? So you got the Bay Bridge, which could have been done in a few months. I want to remind you, the Golden Gate Bridge was built in 2 to 3 years from one side to the other. 2 to 3 years when there was no government interference. 2 to 3 years with slide rules, no computers. 2 to 3 years when the evil white male built the Golden Gate Bridge with his evil mind. 2 to 3 years with slide rules. Now that we have supercomputers, EEOC, LSMFT, government overlooking everything, they can't build a temporary span in less than 4. And you wonder why America's broken, why the greenback is broken? My friends, we are crippled with red tape and green czars. But you've seen nothing yet, because when the czars put on their red hats instead of their green hats, and then they put on their red scarves like the Khmer Rouge, you'll know that Michael Savage was there all along, right up front, which is why he was banned in Britain. And if you think I was banned in Britain by Britain, you're mistaken. I was banned in Britain by the United States government. And if you think it was the Obama administration, you're mistaken again, because it was done while Georgie the Porgy Bush was in power.
Savage.
Some fun, I'll tell you that. It's better than sitting in front of a microphone, sweating every day, trying to get my name off a band list. You know, no, you're healthy. Don't you love it? All the hippies think that everyone from India and Asia is healthier than them. Don't you love the stupidity? They're automatically healthier. India, Asia, everyone's superior but the white man, wherever you go. That guy died like very young from diabetes, eating sweets, sitting on his butt and driving around a Rolls Royce in Antelope Valley there. I'm not trying to get off the politics for a minute because it's after Labor Day. Most people don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, they think it's just gibberish. They can't follow it. You really have to be so tuned into this serial called The Savage Nation to understand what I'm thinking here and what I'm saying. I realize it. This is not for the average person out there. You think I don't know it? This is not made for television. This is not made for pancake makeup. This is not made for a blackboard. This is not made for chalk. This is not made for you. This is made for me. Made in America, the Savage Nation. So where I started today was where it ended last night. I watched the History Channel, the Manson thing, 1969. Manson wanted to see a race war. He said it was coming. Helter Skelter he got from the White Album of the Beatles. So you listen to all that music and you say, what does it have to do with the politics today? Everything. The same mentality is now running America. If you actually looked at the czars that Obama has put in power, their philosophy, their political philosophy matches that of 1969. I'm not accusing them of being mass murderers, comma, ... But I'm not accusing them of not being in favor of doing certain things to their political enemies that have never been done in America before, ... Read the Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot, nice guy. Little professor, Cambodia, goes to Paris, studies Marxism, comes back. He wants to create nationalized, socialized medicine in Cambodia. The middle class rebels. Pol Pot says, naughty, naughty boy and girl. This is not how it's done in the new Cambodia. In the new Cambodia, even the poor get health care. Even the poor get government care. Even the poor get this care, that care, hair care, your care, my care, his care. All aboard? You're not all aboard? Then you're going to wind up in a death camp, mountain of skulls, 3 million skulls. How did that happen? Follow the bouncing skull. It started with a nice man who only wanted to do good for his people. When the people didn't want to go along with his doing good, his do-gooding, the road to you-know-where is paved with good intentions, when they didn't want to go along with it, they were forced to go along with it against their will, Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. And so they still didn't go along with it, so he unleashed the amoral young teenagers of Cambodia, gave them AK-47s and Khmer Rouges, red scarves, and they were told to beat up the middle class. Anyone who wore glasses, they were told, was a bad person. Anyone who wore eyeglasses was educated and therefore a counter-revolutionary. So the middle class disappeared in Cambodia. They were beaten to death, worked to death, shot to death, killed to death, tortured to death. And the Khmer Rouge did it. They were young communists. They were idealists run by a nice little man who was a professor who had gone to Paris to study Marxism. Which is why you have to understand the danger you are in. We have a neo-com administration. I tried with you now for months to say it's neo-Marxist. You can't do it because the hemorrhoid with the ears didn't steal that one yet. You don't use the word. Bush and his people were called neocon, code word for Jew. Neocon this, neocon that. Israel did it. Israel blew up 9/11. Israel blew up the World Trade Center. Jew, neocon, yeah. Can't say Jew, can't say that, but you can't say neocon, so they did it for years, the left did it. Neocon. It was really anti-Semitism. Jews did it again. So now they're onto something new. Now you have the other side of the coin. Now you have Obama surrounded by neo-Marxists. Almost every one of his special advisors at some point in their life, or even currently, are avowedly communist, socialist, anarchist types. But instead of calling them by their proper designation, which is neocom, C-O-M, which would be a nice bookend to neocon, C-O-N, the media doesn't do that because they're all one and the same. Government media complex, beware the government media complex, 1998, Michael Savage, Commonwealth Club. Another speech, genius, unrecognized, done anyway in the archives. Beware the government media complex. Now, some have stolen it and made it into beware the Democrat media complex. Okay. But again, no credit, don't care, doesn't matter. Lao Tzu said doesn't matter who gets the credit for it so long as your ideas are being disseminated. Thank you, Lao Tzu. I appreciate it. When I see you in the next world, I hope you have a nice barbecue chicken waiting for me. You know what I'm saying? That's all. Now, speaking of barbecue chicken, I got to tell you that I had the best barbecue chicken of my life at my barbecue on Sunday. I had 8 very close friends over at my house, and we barbecued. But the beauty here is that I didn't do the barbecuing, so the food was good. I am the world's worst person in front of a grill. I've tried it. I've tried to do the bone on me thing. It doesn't work, you know. It doesn't work. I burn the chicken, either burnt on the outside, raw on the inside. I can't do it. The meat is no good. So my friends own the best Chinese restaurant in the world, Shanghai 1930, Cindy and George. They agree to barbecue for me. I got to tell you, if you haven't had a 5-star chef barbecue at your house, you haven't eaten yet. This was so good, it was unbelievable. It was so good, I didn't give any to the dog. Teddy got nothing. Nobody left anything over. The poor dogs. And by the way, there were 4 dogs there. I loved it. There was Teddy and Tasha, the 2 little 10-pound poodle, 2-pound poodle. Then there was some other dog called a Pooey, a big black dog with, like, curls. She was there. Then my other friends had a dog, like mixed stock, Dalmatian dog. They didn't argue with each other. There wasn't even, it was a bark, a woof. They didn't fight. They didn't growl because they're not liberal dogs. Liberal dogs bark at each other and try to steal each other's food. They undermine each other. But conservative dogs kind of hang out. They got along. It was unbelievable. It was very nice. Then at the end of the day, we got in the boat. Some of us did, and we went up to the Bay Bridge and saw the construction. I said, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So we got on my boat, and we went out there. And the pictures I took, they were unbelievable. The light was just perfect. And although the camera has limitations, the picture on my website is just great. I swear to God, I'm going to do, remember I used to do a Savage photo thing on my website I go around the city. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to start posting pictures of the real San Francisco as opposed to the fake one. The city that Gavin Newsom doesn't want anyone to see, like the bum puking in the mailbox, the bum harassing a tourist, the bum scratching typhus lice onto a tourist, that kind of thing. Because it's time to end this. I can't stand it anymore. I don't know why these people are permitted to destroy the city. And I mean the politicians, because the bums don't want to be in the gutter. The bums want to be cared for in a state-run facility where they can be given the care that they need. They're mentally ill or they're criminal. They don't belong on the street. Homelessness is a charade put on by the liberals. It was created by Governor Brown's father, who released them into the streets. Edmund Pat Brown did this to us. He opened up the mental hospitals. He dumped them on the streets of California, and the state has never been the same, nor the nation. All because a liberal governor said that we can no longer house the mentally ill. It's against their civil rights. Release them into the streets. Here we have them open wards, worse than Calcutta in the streets of America, and the most horrendous example is San Francisco. Now, luckily, I know where to avoid, where to go to not see them, but it's pretty horrible that they let human beings live like this, the liberals. And by the way, if you think they're not spending money on them, you're crazy. $200-400 million a year from the city government is spent on homelessness. What do they do, buy cardboard boxes for them with that money? Where does that $400 million a year go? Turkey sandwiches, sir? Would you like a tuna, turkey, ham, ham on rye, ham on toast, ham on sourdough, ham on sweet dough? What would you like, sir? May I serve you, sir? We are here in the business to serve you. We owe you something. It is our duty to serve you, the thousands of little bureaucrats working for Gavin Newsom, who serve the homeless and serve the other needy communities, including the illegal alien, including the illegal alien drug runner, including the illegal alien drug dealer, including everyone except the taxpayer. All why? 1969, it goes back to Helter Skelter. It goes back to drugged up psychos running the world off the cliff. And you sit there not seeing what's happening. You think they really just want to help the poor. You're crazy. You're insane. You don't know history. I do. Those who do not know the history are condemned to repeat it, my friend. God forbid all of us repeating the history of what do-gooders have done to the world before, because watch out for the do-gooders, because they'll really do you good. As they used to say in Hawaii, the missionaries came to Hawaii to do good, and they did very well indeed. It's the same with the demon cats under Obama. They all want to do good, and they're doing very well indeed. Very well indeed are they doing, to the tune of billions of dollars of front companies, back companies, side companies, up companies, down companies, your company, my wife's company, your son's company, her son's brother's company, Democrat companies, all doing very good indeed while doing very well indeed, because that's how it's done, my friend. It's called BSing the public. We're going to help the poor. We're going to help the poor with a program for the poor and the illegal alien who has no health care. And we're going to do it at the expense of those of you who work and pay taxes. Now, if you come out and talk against this, you're nothing but a white cracker racist, says Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Oh, yes, he's back. Yes, he's back. The man who's inside Obama's head from ear to ear, the man who we warned you was inside Obama's head from ear to ear. After all, he sat in the church for 20 years. He didn't leave once. He only left when it was pointed out to him that America finally might not elect them, because they understood that what was going on between left ear and right ear was what was coming out of Reverend Wright's mouth. Now it's in the White House. So Reverend Wright himself is back. And what does he say? Those who are opposed to health care are white racists, right-wing racists who want to make sure that people of color don't get health care, my friends. And since we are living east of Eden in the land of Nor, where there is no Eden and there is no place, we have to live with what we have, and we have to have with what we live. And since we have now in the White House and around him some people that have never before been seen in such high places in America, we have to live with it, and we're trying to live with it. And so the people go out and they protest, and they're called racist. They're called every name under the sun by Nancy Pelosi, by Harry Reid, and the other illegitimize, the people who don't belong in office at all, are telling the people they don't even belong to have the vote. They have no right to have the vote because they're actually doing what Obama says people should do, which is organize. Think about it. The people in the Tea Parties, the people who went out in the town hall meetings were actually community organized community. So everything that Obama says you should do, they did. Only they didn't agree with him. Therefore, they were fascist, Nazis, un-American, thugs. Everything that the American people aren't, he said they are. Therefore, the government is the illegitimate, not the people. Now, you say it's anti-government, you're wrong. It's anti-illegitimate government. And I'll be darned before I stop telling you what I think is going on. I believe we've had a communist revolution in this country, and I believe it's a slow communist revolution, only you don't even know it. I know that the word socialist is being laughed at. When I first started using it years ago, no one even knew what a socialist was. 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when I started using it, what's that? What are you talking about? Now everyone's socialist, so good. What you don't know is there's 30, 40 varieties of socialist. What's the big deal? He's a socialist. What's he hiding it for? The only question is what variety of socialist is Obama? Is it on the mild side? Is it on the British side? Is it on the middle side? Is it on the far side? Is it on the other side? And what side is it? Is it on the side of Joseph Stalin? Is it on the side of Adolf Hitler, socialist from Germany? Or is it the side of Joseph Stalin, socialist from Russia? Is it on the side of Pol Pot, the socialist from Cambodia? Or is it a mild sort of state socialism? Slightly higher taxes, more government interference, more government-run things, but the people are basically left alone. What side is it? Is it Chavez closing down radio stations, imprisoning people, taking property that isn't theirs? Is it Mugabe style? We don't know. because he doesn't know, because he's only a figurehead. He has no idea where this snowball could end. See, the avalanche has started. We don't know where the avalanche ends. That's the whole point. You don't understand it. There's been an avalanche in America, only you don't know where it ends. You don't know how big an avalanche it is. The question is, who set off the dynamite? Well, you have to look at the currency, because he who controls the currency controls the people. Now, who controls the currency? Well, you have to look at the currency traders of the world. You have to look at the man who almost broke the Bank of England. You have to look at the man who almost broke the Malaysian currency. You have to look at the man who was no doubt trading in U.S. dollars to run the dollar into the toilet by betting against it while claiming to be for it, while putting an imposter in order to make sure that the people have no voice in the government. You got to look at the money trader. You got to look at the money changer in the temple, and you'll find out that if you actually look at the handprints on it, you'll see it goes all the way back to the very same evil genius who almost broke the British pound, in the humble opinion of the man who sits with a microphone and an undershirt on the second floor, watching the world go by underneath his feet. And that's the whole story. It's a talk show host, one man looking at the world, one man's opinion of no power, no importance, not heard from by ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, or Fox. Therefore, he doesn't exist, but he has an audience of millions. No one knows how. How could it be that he has an audience of millions that so fanatically listen to his every word, hang on his every word, want to hear every word, can't wait to hear every word, get up in the morning hoping he's on that day, don't want fill-ins, don't want replays? Where's the man? Where is he? Why doesn't he talk? How come he can't do it every day, all day? Why do I listen to him? What's wrong with me? He's right. I know he's right. When I first heard him, I hated him. I thought he was an extremist. Now I realize I was crazy. He was right. Now I realize the danger we're in. Hey, man, where can I buy Banned in Britain? I don't know. It's nowhere in a bookstore. Why not? How come they publish books by unknown doofus so-called conservatives, and you can't find Michael Savage's books in a bookstore? I don't know. Is it some kind of conspiracy that New York publishers are in business to make money, won't touch a New York Times best-selling author? How come he's never on television? How come? All aboard, Khmer Rouge, here we come. Beware the government media complex. You have Oderman on MSNBC. You have Oderman and Softball. And on the other side of the coin, you have Leprechaun and Wallbanger. They all allegedly hate each other, but in fact, if you flip the coin, it's either side. What do you want? Throw it around, four sides to the coin, because it's all one media complex. It's sort of a Rubik's Cube. The Rubik's Cube has four heads on it. Not as many heads as you would think, but there's four heads, and you think liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat. No, my friend, Moloch owns them all. Watch out for the government media complex, because you think that the Leprechaun and the Wallbanger oppose Oderman and Softball. What you don't know is they're all flipped by the man, the Pesanavante, who controls the dice. The man who controls the dice is the man who controls the TV, the radio, the newspapers, the magazines, the books you read, the food you eat, the pharmaceuticals you take.
You are listening to Michael Savage Archives on Really Big Something Channel.
When I was young, my family lived overseas. I lived in Indonesia for a few years. And my mother, she didn't have the money to send me where all the American kids went to school. But she thought it was important for me to keep up with an American education. So she decided to teach me extra lessons herself, Monday through Friday. But because she had to go to work, the only time she could do it was at 4:30 in the morning. Now, as you might imagine, I wasn't too happy.
Mr. President, appreciate it. There's always a message and another message. On the surface, it's a Beatles song. Under the surface, there's other messages, and on the surface, there's a president speaking to school children rather nicely and kindly and benevolently, and he leaves out the fact that after he was a poor kid who couldn't go to school, he somehow went to Punahou High School, which is a very expensive private high school in Hawaii, which never comes up. How did that happen? How did he have no money and go to Punahou High School? That's left out of the narrative, but then everybody wants to make themselves into something different. In order to tell their story, Lincoln walked to school 15 miles, whatever. Lincoln wrote with a quill, whatever. Lincoln freed the slaves. It wasn't about a trade war between the North and South. Lincoln was a great man. Lincoln wasn't a great man. Washington had false teeth. He didn't have false teeth. Jefferson was a good man, and Jefferson kept slaves. It depends upon what you want. It's a dualism. Dualism lives through all of us, because that's why we're living east of Eden, because we're not God. And because we're not God, we are fallen. And because we're fallen, we're man. And because we're man, we're never going to be right. And although Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, Humpty could never be put together again. And therefore, we are living in an imperfect world, but it's getting worse, not better. And that's why you have to stay very tuned into what the politicians are trying to do to you. Because one thing you should know for sure, which is that when the Democrats and Republicans get along and they have a so-called bipartisan agreement, you can be sure to one thing: the American people are getting screwed royally. The object of a two-party system is to have vocal disagreements in the marketplace of ideas, not for them to be gentlemen from the aisle across the floor. Will the gentle lady from the gutters of the slums of Minneapolis please rise to put forth her rubbish so she can pull the wool over the people's eyes who put the comedian in power? Yes, I will, because it's the year of the woman, and the year of the woman is the year of goodness and kindness and wonderfulness, because we all know the woman is better than the man, and look what we have since the year of the woman. It's gotten better, much better, nicer and better. And there's Nancy Pelosi, who says no matter what the people want, they are louts, they are Nazis, they're no good nicks, and only I know what's good because I am the Queen of Diamonds, and I whispered in the ear of all of those who spoke before they had the strings put upon their wrists by Dianne Feinstein, the shopping cart lady who has not been heard from in a very long time. And here we are in the Savage Nation today after Labor Day, and I hope you're doing well. I hope you've had a nice time. Barbecue. Take me out to the ball game. Here we are, American. Wear the shorts, hit the ball. My, it's still hot. When is the summer ever going to end? What's going in Washington? I don't know, dear. I don't pay any attention to politics. After all, it's all rubbish. They'll do what they want to do anyway, and he's just like all the rest of them. He's no more dangerous than Bush. He's not any different. Come on. You're a racist if you think he is. You're just against blacks. You know that. So don't you dare raise a voice of protest against socialism. What are you talking about? It's not socialism. What is socialism? Well, I don't know, but he's not a socialist. Well, how can you say he's not a socialist if you don't know what a socialist is? It doesn't matter what I know or I don't know. I just know that he's a good man, a nice man, and he is a man who's bringing us change. And all change is good change. All progress is good progress. All progress is good progress, and all change is good change. And so therefore anyone who opposes him is a mean right-wing racist. Just ask Reverend Wright. He's a man who knows what's right. That's why his name was right. He didn't get that name right because he's wrong. He got that name right because he's always right. And if the president sat and listened to him for 20 straight years saying that the white man did this, the white man polluted that, and Van Jones says that the white man put pollutants into the neighborhoods of the minorities, therefore you are aboard with that because that's what's happening. That's the story. That's it. You don't need to know anymore. What you need to know is what they tell you to know. And so therefore you got to read about the Khmer Rouge. You got to understand about the red scarfs and how the nice little man went to Paris. He didn't mean any harm. He only wanted to make Cambodia a more fair place. He wanted change. Pol Pot was a professor. He wanted change for Cambodia. Now, he didn't know exactly how to bring about change because he was a little man, a little professor, a small-minded little professor at that. So he figured he'd learn big things in Paris. And because that's where all the intellectual giants, going back to Voltaire and before, they went to study in Paris, the land of liberté, equalité, fraternité. So the little man from Cambodia goes to Paris, and he gets indoctrinated with Marxism at the university in Paris, and he comes back and says, man, I'm going to bring about change to my country of Cambodia. Yeah, it's very, very bad, because we got poor here, and we got rich here, and there's a middle class, eyeglasses. There's the people who got educated in Hong Kong, and they got educated in Paris. And they're no good because they make a lot of money, and it's not trickling down to the poor. There's no trickle-down poverty here. So I'm going to make sure everyone's equal in Cambodia. But wait a minute, they're not going to listen to me. Now, what do I say to them? They don't want to give up their houses in Cambodia. They don't want to give up their houses to the poor. They're mean. Now, although we're one race, and because we're one race, I can't use racism, which I learned in the School of Theological Divisions in Paris. You know, try race where there's racial differential. Since there's no race to use in Cambodia because we're all one race of Cambodians, try using class warfare. Turn the poor against the rich. That's not working. Then take the amoral, brainwashed youth of Cambodia, give them an AK-47, put a red bandana on their head, give them a name called the Khmer Rouge, and tell them to go out and round up anybody with eyeglasses. And then you'll have a mountain of skulls at the end of the Marxist revolution, the change in Cambodia. Now, it can't happen here, I recognize that, because we have a country with checks and balances, and we have a CIA that's definitely not going to let that happen. We have an FBI that makes sure that wouldn't happen. And, well, although they didn't function recently because they're under attack by the Khmer Rouge inside the government in their own way, go after the CIA, make things up, say they did this, they did that. While they're protecting us, say they were fighting us. While they're protecting us, say they were killing us. While they're keeping our worst enemies from bombing airplanes in the sky, say they were trying to kill us. So neutralize the CIA so they can't unleash the documents about the individuals in the Obama White House who couldn't even pass a security clearance. Make certain that the CIA is neutralized, use the Queen of Diamonds to do it. And then go on a little further, make sure the FBI doesn't do anything except make sure they look at EEOC booklets and see how they can get advanced, and make sure that they're only looking into racism and homophobia, not really looking into terrorism, because that way they'll be safe on the side. And then create your own civilian national security force, bigger and better and wiser and stronger than the U.S. military. But that got subverted. Because the guy they had in place to build up that national security force, first they called him a Green Czar. What you don't know is that Adolf Hitler was an early Green. You don't know that because you don't know history. Adolf Hitler came to power on many different platforms. You heard about the anti-Semitism, which is true. But you didn't know he was an overt socialist who was also an early back-to-nature man. That's why all the little boys in their lederhosen marched in the woods together. The little boys, the Hitler Youth, they loved nature, the Edelweiss was so beautiful, the Edelweiss flowers up in the Alpine. I love the fatherland. And they marched in the lederhosen, and they loved nature. They slept in the outdoors, and they had bonfires, and they loved the pine trees, and they loved the snow. And they were, therefore, the early Greens, and they were called National Socialists, and all they wanted to do was make a society of equals. Nobody would be different in Germany. In the new Germany, everybody would be the same. And guess what? It worked, because that charismatic man from Vienna, he brought everybody together except those nasty Jews and the gypsies and the communists and the trade unionists. They had to go because they weren't like the others, and therefore they went. And the reason the economy got good is because they stole everything from the Jews, and they gave it to themselves, and therefore the economy looked like it was doing good. But one of the main things that Hitler used to bring Germany back from the ashes of defeat and the League of Nations reparations was great public works spending. Like all dictators, Hitler knew that the only way to make the people feel good was to put money in their pocket and give them jobs. And so he created great jobs. And they built the Autobahn with public funds stolen at that. Either you took it from the Jews, or you took it from the Poles, or you took it from the Czechs, or you took it from the Romanians, or you took it from whoever. But you used the money, you invented the money, you printed the money. Didn't matter how, the Deutschmark became stronger. And the Edelweiss smelled even better, and the snow got whiter. And the tablecloths got whiter in all the German homes. And the girls got blonder, and the people got brighter. And no one knew where the money was coming from. But it didn't matter that Jews were being systematically killed and beaten to death. It didn't matter that countries were being invaded. All that mattered was everybody was marching and smelling the Edelweiss and looking at the pristine snow and eating strudel on clean white tablecloths. And the trickle-down economy was working because he was pumping it in through public works projects. That's how he rebuilt Germany. Public works projects. Now, medical care was free in the new Germany, except for those in slave labor camps who had no medical care. They didn't need it because they were subhumans. They didn't need medical care. The only people who needed medical care were the good, clean Germans who deserved it. The subhumans didn't deserve medical care, and so therefore they got the medical care that they deserved, which was no medical care in the death camps, and so the others got the good, clean German medical care. Now, it's true that the others were subhumans and they could be of some use, so they were used in medical experiments in order to make certain that the good, clean German had good medicine, so they experimented on subhumans while they were alive, all sorts of experiments to see how it would work. And that's what happens when you bring about change in a dramatic, revolutionary way. And in only a few short years, the new Germany arose and everyone was happy. I'll be right back. Bring it all down, man. Why not do it in the road? It feels good, do it. From 1969 to 2009, one arc. Here we are. Wasn't for drug, sex, and rock and roll, we wouldn't have the Marxists that we have now, the neocons. Neocom as opposed to neocons. We got rid of the neocons, now we have the neocons. Now you got to ask yourself which was worse. That's up to you to decide. Depends on which side of the road you are on, left side, right side, all aboard. Doesn't matter. Who do you worship? I don't know. The important thing to know is that it all ends badly. It does not go out with a bang. It goes out with a whimper. The next thing you wake up and you find out it's a one world order. The dollar is gone. There's a new currency, a new language. It's not Esperanto, but English is dead. And you are a minority in your own country without any civil rights whatsoever. And you have a rotating presidency where there's not even a president anymore. It's sort of a rotating star chamber. Chavez, Obama, Ahmadinejad. You don't even know who's who, but they all look nice because they went to Venice together with Oliver Stone and the red carpet. And they're all movie stars, and the important thing is that they look good, and they march, and they're tall, and although they have platform shoes, if they're short, doesn't matter, but they're made to look tall, and they act tall, because they are tall. Inside, they're taller than God himself, and therefore the important thing is to not even care about it, because Nancy Pelosi, the mother of America, is looking out for you. There is a woman who is continuously smiling, the super smile of Nancy Pelosi, more popular than a speeding bullet. Nancy Pelosi, the woman who wants to bring you, the politician who wants to bring you. Do you understand that she wants to do you, not bring you? Do you understand that? That the do-gooders will do you every time, that the missionaries went to Hawaii to do good, and they did very well indeed, wound up owning 90% of the land stolen from the Hawaiians, all in the name of doing good. And just as any government that wants to do good will do well, you have to understand that First Lady, the woman who is never seen anymore because she is such a, let us say, negative, and therefore they don't show her at all, Michelle Obama. Notice she hasn't been seen. Notice she's the invisible First Lady. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that she is never seen or heard? And have you wondered why that is? Well, one of the reasons is because our Q factor is such that every time she speaks, his ratings go down. And since his ratings are so low and they can't go much lower right now, they have to rush it through and get that socialized medicine in that Ezekiel Emanuel wants so badly in order to make sure that the older man at 65 who has 40 years on the 25-year-old who's lived 40 years longer than a 25-year-old doesn't get the health care that the 25-year-old gets. And so they got to hurry it up, ram it through, pantsuits, ties, unpopular, the people be damned, let them drop dead. And the First Lady now is not seen nor heard, although it turns out that she has 26 servants. The salary is $1.75 million a year just for her servants, not including benefit packages. And it's hard to believe that she has a chief of staff, a deputy assistant to the president, a special assistant to the president, a special assistant director of communications, a deputy chief of the deputy chief, a deputy chief of staff to the chief of staff, a director and press secretary to Michelle, a director of scheduling to Michelle, a deputy director of policy and projects for Michelle, a deputy director and deputy social secretary of Michelle, a deputy director and deputy social secretary of Michelle, a deputy director of scheduling and events coordinator for Michelle, a deputy director of advance and trip director for Michelle, a special assistant and personal aide to Michelle, an associate director and deputy press secretary to Michelle, and a special assistant for scheduling and traveling for Michelle, an associate director of correspondence for Michelle, a deputy associate director of social office for Michelle, an executive assistant to the chief of staff to Michelle, a staff assistant to the social secretary for Michelle, a staff assistant for Michelle, and finally, and last but not least, in the 26 servants for Michelle, a deputy associate director of correspondence for Michelle. This is a woman who wants to, in her own small way, give back to the country that has given her so much. And that's why she left the job at a big law firm for a career in public service. Now, of course, you pay for it, but the important thing is that you don't know you pay for it. And since you don't know you pay for it, it doesn't matter. Let the people be damned. Doesn't matter that she says she's for the people. Well, she is in a way. I'm sure the 26 servants that she has love her because they're people. Aren't they people? Aren't all of the people who are living fat off the land of the Democrats' stolen money, all of the stimulus money that was stolen from us, aren't they happy? And aren't they people too? They are. And they're happy. They're happy people because they make good salaries. Okay.
He would speak. He had everybody's undivided attention. I mean, it was like, oh, Charlie, and it's like you would just hang on to every word that he would say. A lot of the words didn't really register with me. For me, it was more the way he sounded, the way his body language, how he would move when he would speak. He was just mesmerizing. He was extremely exciting.
As all charismatic people are. It's not what they say, it's how they say it, and that's why we have hope and change right now for the millions of useful idiots out there. Welcome to the Savage Nation. We're talking about this and that, things of no meaning whatsoever. The show is not covered anywhere, except on almost 400 stations, listened to religiously by millions of people, not heard from. But the fact of the matter is, good news does come in small packages, and over the weekend, Michael Savage got finally a break in the dam. Although the illegitimate Labour Socialist government of England recently embarrassed by the Lockerbie oil scandal, just sent a letter to my attorney saying that they refuse to take my name off the list because they like being such people. I was invited to be the keynote speaker at the International Legal Conference on Freedom of Speech and Religion coming up in Washington, D.C. on October 27th and 28th. It's put out by the International Free Press Society, Liberty Legal Project International. And I never do speeches. I never go anywhere. But the conference is made mainly for the press, the media, and attorneys. There are various senators and congressmen coming. It's about hate speech laws, hate crime laws, insult laws, blasphemy laws, and things of that nature. And all the people who are really interested in freedom of speech are going to be speaking there and attending. And it's about the fairness doctrine. It's about criticism. And they made me, well, she offered me to become the woman who's running it is a real fan of the Savage Nation. One of the members of Parliament will be there who's a member of the House of Lords who brought Geert Wilders to show the movie Fitna in England, in the House of, in Parliament. And there are other great people who are going to speak there, including my friend Ellis Washington, who first pointed this out to me. And we're going to post the space is limited. I think it's only 400 seats, truthfully. And I have nothing to do with organizing it. I'm not making any money from it, so don't think I'm pushing. I want you to understand that it's a very important break for freedom of speech and the First Amendment. Legal scholars are going to be there. The biggest First Amendment legal scholars are going to be there. People in the press who still believe in freedom of the press are going to be there. And I was invited to be the keynote speaker, and I've accepted because it's that important. And I believe that if I am surrounded by these people, the evildoers in the Labour government of Britain will be exposed for who they are, and those in the American media who are, in essence, in cahoots with them will also be exposed for who they are. I don't have the link up right now. I don't want to read it to you because you'll never find it. You know, read online. I can't remember the website. I'll put it up this week, I promise you. And now on to the news of the day. The man who broke the English pound. The man who almost broke the English pound. The money trader in the Temple of Freedom who would take away your life itself for another dollar. The man who almost broke the Malaysian pound, who is trading in U.S. currency as we speak, and has weakened the U.S. dollar to the point that now the UN, the vermin in the UN, want the dollar replaced by a global currency. The very same people who have put Michael Savage on the banned in Britain list, because I'm first, not last, there will be others, now want to destroy your currency and take away all your freedoms. You haven't any idea where we are at, because the government media complex has you bamboozled. And although Pelosi and Reid are the most unpopular figures in the history of Congress, they keep smiling and marching forward because they're progressives, and progressives always want progress. Even if they're hated, despised, doesn't matter, because the greater good for the smaller number is what's important. And that's the important thing, is to rush it through, jam it through, do it the Rahm Emanuel way, ram it through so Ezekiel can decide how much medical care you get at the end of your life. And if you're 65, according to Ezekiel Emanuel, you've been alive 40 years longer than a 25-year-old, and you're entitled to 40 times less medical care. That's the way it works, because if you have fewer years and you got less medical care, you had more medical care than the 25-year-old, therefore you have to ration it. That's how it works, which is why the town hall meetings are so important, which is why you've been called thugs and Nazis. Now I'm going to take calls for the rest of this hour. I've done a wonderful performance so far today. I've given you some news, views, and reviews. I have showed you that although Fox News should get the credit for bringing down the green shirt, who would have become a brown shirt, in my opinion, Van Jones, they should get the credit because they have the power and I don't. It was Michael Savage on March 12th, 2009, who first wrote from brown shirts to green shirts to point out this sterling individual, Van Jones, and his background attacking police. It's up on michaelsavage.com for those of you who think the hem did it. The fact of the matter is, without a dress, there can be no hem. New York City, Pauline, WOR, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Michael, I have to tell you, tonight's show is just awesome. I never heard you like this. You just, like, blowing me away. I'm just upset.
Well, this is what I made my name with. I used to do a free associational shows 3 hours a day when I was a local host almost every day. I didn't stop. I had this energy then. I've been very tired this last year from the beating I've taken from the illegitimate left. And it's been very hard for me to get into this mindset. But I was off Friday, I was off Monday, I had a 4-day rest. So here it is. I can't do it every day, Pauline, but this is the actual what goes on thing.
To tell you, Michael, what an education and such information I get. I have to tell you this one little thing. When my husband and I used to go out, he used to go to me, you know, you look a little too sexy. Now when we go out, he goes, remember, no politics, because I like to hear people's opinions, and before you know it, there's a big uproar wherever we go.
That's right. Don't discuss politics or religion. You're liable to learn something. Pauline, you win a free copy of what? Name the book, and you get a free copy coming out to you when it's printed.
God bless you, Michael.
Well, no, you have to name the book.
Oh, my mind just went blank. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's English.
All right, I'm a nice guy, but name it now. Look it up on michaelsavage.com. You want to do it right now?
I can't. I'm not even on the computer. I'm so sorry. It's about the free speech, not free speech in England. All right.
I don't want to be mean. Banned in Britain. Give it to Pauline. Stay on the line. I'm a nice guy. I'm not a cheap guy who eats corned beef and cabbage. That's all. I'm a guy who lets the dollar fly. You know, I said that if you took a cube and you put Oderman and softball on two sides, and the LEP and the wall banger on the other side, and you know, no matter which way you threw the cube, it doesn't matter because the guy who's throwing the cube owns the networks. Don't you get it? See what I'm saying? That's what I was getting at. It doesn't really matter. Oh, talking heads, yak, yak, don't talk back, yakety yak, don't talk back. See, when you talk back, you're no good. When they talk back, it's good. And that's why you never hear of me except on the show, which is where I belong. When I thought about it, I had an epiphany about it. I like the word epiphany, so I'll use it a little bit. It's like gravitas lasted for 3 months. Remember everyone using it. Everyone in the media. He has gravitas. What is it? I don't know. It's something like cheese or something. But he has it. Gravitas. Remember everyone used those pat words? Now epiphany is in the news a lot. Everyone's using it in the media. It's epiphany. He had an epiphany. It's epiphany. So I had an epiphany about the fact that the LEP and the wall banger were really the bookend in a way to Oderman and softball. Yak, yak. MSNBC versus Fox. Savage is not on either channel. They have hookers, prostitutes, murderers, criminals, killers, four-headed men, three-headed men, two-headed men, sports stars, criminals, rapists, mass murderers, radio talk shows no one ever heard of, but never Michael Savage. How is that possible? Because they're all part of the same Rubik's Cube. Don't you understand? And the man who throws that cube is the man who owns the networks. Now you say, the man. Interlocking board of directors. Check it out. You think that NBC is different than Fox? You're right. Except when you start looking at the crossover between the men on the boards, the men and women on the boards of News Corporation, and the 19% ownership by the Saudis. Excuse me, we forgot that. That was big news years ago. It's been forgotten now, which is why the minority shareholder says, not that Savage. He stopped the Dubai Ports deal. Him? Yes. Therefore, he will not be heard from again. Because the name was put on a list in Britain in December of 2008 when Bush was in power. It wasn't Obama. See, again, the cue ball. You thought it was Obama when it was Bush. Now, why would Bush do that? Because Savage said Bush was a fiscal socialist at least a year ago, maybe more than a year ago, and he said to you about this time last year, September of 2008, if my calendar is correct, watch out, Bush is not done yet. He's got 3 to 4 more months. Wait to see what he does. And sure enough, it was the last 3 months that he really gave it to you, you know where. He really gave you a royal screwing. He got Paulson. Paulson. Mr. Paulson, where'd the money come? And billions went up in smoke. Well, really not. It went to Wall Street to the company that the Treasury Secretary, Hank Paulson, worked for. It was Goldman Sachs, after all. It was turned into a bank one weekend last December. While Jingle Bells was playing, Goldman Sachs was turned into a bank. Why? Because they knew that the slush fund that they took from you was going to go only to banks. Since Goldman Sachs was as an investment bank, they turned it into a commercial bank so that Henry Paulson could make it a very white Christmas. You know what I mean? After all, the bonuses had still got to come from somewhere. So he made sure that the bonus money came from the stimulus money, which came from the hocus pocus. Lemony Ocas, helter skelter. All right, Mr. Paulson, we have a hearing now. Where'd that money come from? Where did it go? Where are you, Mr. Paulson? Where have you been? Michigan. Where was Chris Cox while Bernie Madoff was robbing the public? How come billions of dollars got robbed by Mr. Madoff from Palm Beach and from Far Rockaway? How could he do that while the SEC, the watchdog, was watching Chris Cox, who was blonde and short-haired, and the picture of the good Republican was in charge of the SEC, not investigated, of course, because he didn't know a thing about it. He was appointed by Bush and loved by everybody who said he was a good conservative, and therefore, how come he didn't do anything? Well, because the SEC's job was to make sure nothing was done. They are the proverbial fox in the henhouse, and therefore, the only job the SEC ever had was to make sure that there was no investigation of any wrongdoing. And so the world turns and the wheels go round and round. And we'll move at that point into, let us say, The Wheels Go Round and Round by the Beatles. That was a cue which you couldn't have followed because I didn't tell you to even get it in the archives.
Sitting here watching the wheels go round and round.
All right, anyone who gets on the show from here on in gets a free copy of Banned in Britain if you can name the book. It's available only on michaelsavage.com. Rare, limited, beautiful hardcover edition. And by the way, if you own a business and you want to buy multiple copies, there are special deals out there for the first printing, first edition. And I mean it. That's it. That's the story. Mississippi, Patty, you're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
This is exactly the type of speech that they're trying to ban. Is everything that you've said, you have so brilliantly encapsulated the whole web of deceit that's running through our government right now. It is just brilliant. It would be great if you could just edit this whole hour and then just replay the prime cuts for your speech in Washington.
Patty, let me ask you something. Let me ask a question. Which country would ban Michael Savage from the radio? Name the countries that would not permit me to be on the air.
Venezuela. Let's see. Probably.
No, it goes without saying. Yeah, Venezuela, sure. Chavez, a good buddy of Hillary Clinton and Obama, because they back Chavez in opposing democracy in Honduras. Forget the fact that the people threw the bum out in Honduras. Yes, Venezuela would close down the radio stations, ban Michael Savage. Iran certainly would ban Michael Savage, put him in a torture chamber for speaking his mind. We don't have to mention the other despotic nations there are given, but amongst so-called Western nations, which nations would ban my speech? You wouldn't believe it happened in Britain. Would you believe it?
Never.
What is the Labor government so afraid of that they don't want Michael Savage to speak? What do they fear so much? Exactly what I did in the last hour. Did I say hurt anybody once? Did I, Patty?
No, not at all.
Did I say hurt anybody once? Did I say anything derogatory about anyone's race, religion, or sexual orientation? No. So therefore, what's so dangerous about what I did in the last 2 hours on this show? I exposed the corruption. I exposed the corruption in the government on both sides of the aisle, didn't I?
Let me just add one more. Bush was president when Sandy Burglar stole documents from the National Archive and he got a slap on the wrist.
That's right.
That in and of itself.
That's right. So now you understand why when the New Yorker covered me in a profile, they called me Michael Savage Party of One. I mean, that's the truth. He hit the nail on the head. Patty, name the book and I'll give you a free copy.
Banned in Britain.
Bingo! Patty has a good memory. San Diego. Larry, you're up next. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Michael, the people out here, I'm a cab driver, and the people from across the country are so confused what's going on. They don't want the health care. They're afraid what's going on, what they're doing to our military. They're wondering what's going to happen with our military. I mean, he's giving up all these things without using the Senate. I mean, it's total crazy.
Do you know what happened today? He was made chairman of the Security Council at the United Nations today, and the first agenda item is a non-nuclear treaty. So, in other words, he wants to deball and defang the United States of America before the world. Do you have any idea what's going on in front of our eyes?
Scaring everybody. Scaring the hell out of everybody. No
Larry, how could a man who was anti-war, anti-military, anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment, who could not pass an FBI security clearance to become an FBI agent, how could he be president and commander-in-chief? How is that possible?
This was planned a long time ago. That's why McCain was put in instead of Romney. A lot of things were done. That's our country.
Thank you. Larry, I've always said that it's the average man who's going to save America because he knows more about the country than the white-collar frauds on Wall Street, for example, or the politician, the political class. Name the book, Larry, and you get a free copy sent out when it's ready.
Banned in Britain.
Thank you. It's on everybody's lips because they want a free book. I'm going to go through the callers right now. 1-800-449-8255. Visit me online at michaelsavage.com. Texas, Perry, great call. Go ahead, please. You've been waiting a long time. Go ahead, my good friend.
Yes, sir.
Perry.
Ban one, ban all. If a sovereign nation decides to ban one of our citizens, that is a great wrong, and it's a greater wrong when our elected officials, our media, our citizens don't stand up and support the citizen that's been wronged. And I think we need to do that, or we will all be singing Reverend Niemöller's lament.
Oh, my God. Well, what you're saying is when the Danes, when the Nazis took over Denmark, they made the Jews wear a gold star, right? A yellow star. And the Danish king came out with a yellow star on his sleeve and said, "We are all Jews." Remember that?
Yes.
And that was so that the Nazis couldn't easily identify and pick off the Jew. So you're saying is that there should be a petition circulated in America with thousands of people saying to Britain, "Ban me too." Is that what you're suggesting, Perry?
Yes, sir. Ban all of us.
Well, Perry, you know what? Maybe that's a good citizens movement. Sign a petition to be banned in Britain. What a great idea. And send it to the government. That's a great idea, Perry. I owe you very deeply. I hope someone picks up on that. Maybe we'll put it up on Facebook or Twitter, whatever. But, Perry, let me send you a free copy of the book Banned in Britain when it comes out. That's an amazing idea. What if tens of thousands of Americans signed a petition that said to the British government, because you have taken a sovereign American citizen of a sovereign American nation, a member of the media who you've lied about and distorted, and you've banned them from your country, ban me too. We are all savage. That would be nice. That would be a heck of a movement. You talk about a Tea Party movement. But look, that's up to you. There's only so much I can do or I want to do. Go to michaelsavage.com, check out the stories. Look forward to tomorrow when I will be depressed because today I was manic. And since manic is followed by depression, the sine curve of life, expect a different show tomorrow completely. Very flat, very ordinary, very much like what you normally hear. Two-dimensional, sometimes one-dimensional, but good anyway. Even in one dimension, it's more deeply interesting.
Savage. You are listening to Michael Savage Archives on Really Big Something Channel.
Well, here we are after Labor Day, and I'm still banned in Britain, banned by Fox and banned by the Alphabet channels. But I have some good news. I was invited. Well, first of all, let me start at the top. I was surprised over the weekend to learn of a conference coming up in the Congressional Auditorium in Washington, D.C. on October 27th called the International Legal Conference on Freedom of Speech and Religion, presented by the International Free Press Society, the Liberty Legal Project, and the Center for Security Policy. What was amazing is the people who are speaking exactly about a situation such as this: hate speech laws, hate crime laws, insult laws, blasphemy laws, and so on. The conference is aimed at attorneys, members of the press and the media, etc. And when I told the attorney, Ann Fishman, who was the head of the Liberty Legal Project, that I was interested in attending, she said, "Michael, I'm a big fan of yours. Would you accept the honor of being the keynote speaker?" And I did. And I don't do speeches, but I'm going to do this one because this is important. Although I may be banned in Britain, and although I may be banned on Fox News, which is really sad when you think about it, I'm not banned amongst the attorneys who understand what's at stake here. They know what's at stake. So this is very good news. In fact, coming to the conference is Lord Malcolm Pearson, a member of Parliament in the United Kingdom in the House of Lords. These people were deeply involved in inviting Geert Wilders to the United Kingdom. And so I'm really honored. I'm going to be there October 27th, and I'll tell my audience much more about it. What's in the news, Beowulf?
Barney Frank, Representative Barney Frank, is interested in capping his political career, apparently, as a member of President Obama's cabinet. So now he's...
In what capacity? Department of what? Clownology? How about Secretary of Rhetoric? Secretary of the Big Charade. The guy is a total and absolute disaster. He should be in an orange jumpsuit. But so should many of the individuals in the Obama cabinet. You know that Van Jones is out.
That's right.
The Green Czar. The very, very, very strange Van Jones appointment. He never filled out the questionnaire. No FBI clearance. But there's over 30 other czars, so-called, in the United States of America, with no congressional oversight, running rampant inside the White House, advising the imposter, Obama. How is that possible, Beowulf? Who do you think is next on the list of czars who's going to be investigated? There are people inside every department. I notice also that gold is rising, the dollar is collapsing. The UN wants to replace the dollar with a global currency. Could you imagine bureaucrats from Nairobi and bureaucrats from China and bureaucrats from Belgium manipulating this currency, this new currency? What's worrying me is that there's somebody behind all of this. He's a money trader. He put Obama in office, and he's not being investigated. He wants to break the dollar. He knows that he who controls the currency controls the people. There's one man behind all of this. He is the most evil man in the world. He's Dr. Evil himself. Why is the FBI not investigating this? Could that be why the CIA is under attack by Nancy Pelosi? Maybe they know something about this, and they wanted to pull the investigation. What do I know? But something's wrong with this picture. For me to be living in a time when the dollar is about to be destroyed by an imposter, the same Obama imposter now wants to increase the debt ceiling. How can they not stop this man? It's King Ludwig all over again, who broke the currency of Bavaria. The man is insane. How can he be doing this?
He's emptying the Treasury. Bush started it, and he's just going along.
Bush started it. Thank you very much. I called Bush a fiscal what? A year before anybody else. A fiscal socialist. It was Bush who started this process, but we cannot let Obama finish us off.
And by the way, there's an interesting story that come out according to a website that the First Lady now requires 26 servants. She has got 26 people on her payroll. This is unprecedented.
How many did the past First Lady have? Maybe Laura Bush had 27.
Well, speaking of Laura Bush, she actually backed Obama on giving this speech to America's children.
Well, Laura Bush has always been kind of the Queen of Diamonds to me, and I was never a fan of hers. Never. I always didn't go for the Stepford wife type of thing. But what about Obama speaking to students? The speech is kind of benign, isn't it? You know, stay in school, brush your teeth kind of thing.
It was interesting how it transformed over the weekend. After there was criticism about political influence, they changed the speech. Originally, it was going to contain an urging to students to write a letter to say how they could help the president. And once there was criticism of that, they took it out of the speech.
Well, every dictator has always seen the children as the future. It's a classic left-wing tactic of winning the hearts and minds by the far left, which is the next generation. It's exactly what Mao Zedong did with the Red Brigades. It's what the Khmer Rouge were in Cambodia. They become amoral murderers if they're raised early enough and hard enough by a dictator. So this man has to be watched very carefully. There's no question Obama is a dictator in waiting. Let's leave it at that. There are many other stories. The dollar hits a low for the year. Pelosi is back asking for new money. Fannie Mae, the people who broke us, now want billions of dollars to pay for the lawyers. It's unbelievable. It doesn't get any better by the day. It gets worse.
And tomorrow night, Obama's going to give a speech to America to try to sell them again on socialized.
Come on. I think that he's hit his high water mark. I don't think this man could go any farther with this. He's hit his high water mark. At least that's my belief on this issue. The whole party, the Democrat Party, is going to lose 30 to 40 seats. By the way, we didn't talk about the biggest story of the weekend. The 3 British Muslims found guilty of wanting to blow up 3 airplanes at 30,000 feet, killing thousands of people. Did you catch that story? Buried by ABC, CBS, and NBC? 3 British Muslims were found guilty of conspiracy to murder thousands of passengers and crew in an unprecedented airline bomb plot that could have proved as deadly as the 9/11 attacks. Buried by the American media. The word Muslim is left out of it. When the hell are the people going to wake up in this country?
I noticed none of them were banned from the country.
No, they're not banned. I think probably for compassionate reasons they'll be allowed out of jail very soon. By the way, remember that charade of the Lockerbie bomber? I knew when they said that he had only weeks to live, they were lying, and I knew that when the doctor in whatever hellhole in Africa he went to, Libya, said that he had only weeks to live, I knew it was made up. By the way, you know who's back? Trafficant in Cleveland. Did you see that on my website?
I saw that, yeah.
Trafficant rips enemies at welcome home party. You got to give it to the guy. His signature toupee firmly back atop his head. He said, I was a quarterback, I was a congressman, now I'm a convict. I mean, I always admired the guy. To me, what Trafficant did was illegal, but compared to the Congress of today, he is Snow White. Long-term unemployment numbers reach record. 5 million Americans have been out of work for more than 6 months. I thought Obama was going to create 3 million new jobs. I guess Nixon stopped him from doing it, huh? Green Czar Van Jones in pre-Obama days. Did you see the picture of him with the dreadlocks?
I saw that. He looks like Abu Mumia Jamal or something.
He was a supporter of Abu.
It doesn't surprise me in the least.
Yale criticized for nixing Muslim cartoons and book. Cowards at Yale, the same university that gave Van Jones his law degree. Citing fears of violence, Yale University has removed cartoons of Islam's prophet Muhammad from an upcoming book about how they caused outrage across the Muslim world. What a bunch of cowards and backstabbing vermin.
Same thing that the Danes did.
Well, at least it's not banned in Denmark. Or is it banned in Denmark? I'm banned in the UK, and by the way, I got to tell you, the first printing and first edition, I can't miss this opportunity of Banned in Britain. There is still a golden opportunity to get the first printing, first edition of Banned in Britain, and you'll see how the United Kingdom banned Savage for oil.
Savage.
You know, with Obama's upcoming talk to the nation about health care and his talk to the children in school today, and of course, remembering 9/11, it brings up questions about service. Today, we're going to speak with Dr. Peter Breggin with his views on how progressives view caring and service.
Recently, I listened to a member of the Kennedy family talking about Teddy and how much he cared about and helped the younger Kennedys who had been stricken by the assassinations of Jack and Robert. He then concluded with a political observation that caring about the most vulnerable of our citizens is the heart of America, the core of our nation's best values. I fully understand where this Kennedy was coming from. I have said that a nation can be judged by how it treats its most vulnerable citizens, especially its disadvantaged children. And I am convinced that caring is essential to every helping relationship, both professional and personal. I have devoted much of my professional life to acting on behalf of children and other citizens who need help and protection. But there is a problem when caring is made the central value of a political philosophy, or when it is seen as the core value of our nation. Before there can be caring, there must be individuals who are capable of caring and capable of giving of themselves and their resources. Indeed, people must have the opportunity to generate the resources before they can share them.
Where does responsibility fit into caring?
For me, responsibility for myself, being independent and cherishing my freedom, has always been a given. For whatever reason, these attitudes have been a part of me as far back as I can recall, into my early childhood. I mistakenly assumed that these were everyone's core values. Before we can become caring individuals, we must first be responsible individuals. We must first become people determined to take charge of our own lives, capable of independent thought and action, and capable of the self-reliance that comes with the exercise of these values and attitudes.
In his talk to America's children, he did not talk about how they could help the president owing to pressure. Well, that's good. Doesn't that sound a lot like serving the president originally?
Yes, Obama was planning to manipulate the tender feelings of children, to make them feel it's their duty to serve their president, the way subjects are taught to serve their king. I cannot imagine George Washington asking Americans of any age to serve him. He risked his life to create a nation where citizens would never be asked to serve their rulers. President Obama has also talked about dedicating 9/11 as a day of service. There again is that underlying leftist implication that the government or its leaders should tell us when and whom to serve. More than that, 9/11 has nothing to do with service. 9/11 should be a solemn day of remembrance for our citizens who died in a war against their nation, and a solemn reminder of the need to take responsibility for our survival and our freedom. 9/11 should be more like Pearl Harbor Day than Earth Day.
Exactly.
Besides, it's an insult to ask Americans to devote a day of service. Every man or woman who stays home to take care of a family devotes nearly every waking hour to the service of children, family, and ultimately society. Every man or woman who goes to work to support a family is providing a service to children, family, and society. In fact, almost anyone who makes a living does so by providing a service. Whether you are cleaning streets or planning them, maintaining buildings or building them, using loans to invest in your business or giving out loans as your business, you are providing services within our free enterprise system. Soldiers, police officers, teachers, doctors, waiters and waitresses, lawyers, plumbers, bankers, business managers, and manufacturers. We all provide services. That's the secret beauty of the free enterprise system. We provide services in return for fees or profits, and then nearly all of us share our resources with other people and the nation. Returning to the heart of America is caring or freedom and responsibility, the heart of America. Don't make the mistake of assuming the existence of a free and responsible citizenry. Freedom and responsibility are the bedrock of America, and that has provided us the opportunity to become a caring and generous society. In fact, members of the Kennedy family have the opportunity to display how much they care precisely because their patriarch took responsibility for generating the enormous wealth that they enjoy. Only in America. That brings us to what I call the primary principles, the refrain of my weekly report. Protect freedom, take responsibility at all times, express gratitude for all your gifts and opportunities, become a source of love. You can find me and listen to all these reports and download the transcripts at Breggin.com. That's BREGGIN.com.
Thanks, Dr. Breggin. You know, this is interesting. Do you know that my collection of medicinal plants is housed in the Kew Gardens in London? Do you know that? All the years I collected plants looking for cures, I made 7 sets of herbarium specimens, and one was sent to Kew Gardens in London. I visited it once, way back in the 70s or 80s. I don't remember which. Another collection is in the Bishop Museum in Hawaii. Another collection is in the Fiji Museum. I have a whole collection of them, which I just got out of a warehouse. I can't believe this story. I went to a warehouse that I keep here in the Bay Area, and I put my herbarium of these rare plants in there in 1995, and I never went back. So they're sitting in this warehouse in bad storage, unair-conditioned storage, since 1995. I went there and I figured, okay, I'm going to open it up. All the plants are going to be eaten alive. They weren't. I had put mothballs in there. My mother was right. And you can still smell the mothballs from 95 till now. And none of the plants have been eaten up. So the collection is still there. I threw in the mothballs and put it back in storage. It's interesting to me. But the point is that my plant collection is in the Kew Gardens in London. I guess Gordon Brown could go now and purge them out of the Kew Gardens. Gordon Brown maybe could have one of his fascist socialite socialites go into the Kew Gardens and look for my collections and burn them. He could have a plant burning. Because after all, they're fascist plants, aren't they? They were collected by the evil Michael Savage back in the 1960s and 70s in Fiji and Tonga and such, when he was a humble botanist looking for cures from the jungles. They call them rainforests. Now we call them jungles. It doesn't matter what you call them. I actually did the plant collecting. Now, most of the frauds in the environmental business have never actually been in a jungle. They've been in the jungle in their own mind because they think that they're actually Charles Darwin, but they've actually never been in the rainforest, never collected plants, but they think they know more about the environment than I do. They know nothing. Zero. There is no anthropogenic global warming so far as I can tell.
Savage.
Joining us now for his report from the West Coast or Left Coast is James Herson.
Thanks, Michael. You know, it's an incredibly moving saga, the abduction and amazing emancipation of J.C. Lee Dugard, this girl that was held captive for 18 years. The story throws the spotlight on something our postmodern culture has all but abandoned, to the detriment of our criminal justice system. That is, the existence of good and evil. J.C. was only 11 years old when in 1991 she was abducted near her home in South Lake Tahoe, California, 170 miles from the town where Philip Garrido lived. J.C. and her children, who are now aged 11 and 15, were kept in abysmal conditions in a hidden soundproof shed and tent compound in this guy Garrido's backyard. And the three spent nearly 2 decades locked in a 10-foot by 10-foot shed, sometimes moved into a second shed or in one of the 2 tents that were in the backyard. And this guy Garrido was a registered sex offender. Why? Because of a 1977 conviction on kidnapping and rape of another woman, 25-year-old woman in the same town, South Lake Tahoe, a woman who he held in a small storage facility in Reno. Now, he said at his trial that his crimes were the victim's fault because she was attractive. Well, he was properly sentenced to 50 years to life of hard time in a tough prison in Leavenworth, Kansas. And while in federal prison, he met his current wife, Nancy, who's also been charged in this case. But Garrido only served 11 years of his sentence. Incredibly, he was granted parole in 1988.
Well, why was he released to walk the streets then?
Well, look, there's an integral part of the development of criminal law in the West which is dependent on a defendant's state of mind. The word that's used in legal treatises is mens rea. That's Latin for guilty mind. It's a criminal mindset where a person committing the crime understands the nature and quality of his or her wrongful actions. Now, because this concept has inherent moral underpinnings, those of the liberal persuasion have altered it to suit their ideology. Liberal intellectuals, or so-called intellectuals, social scientists, legal theorists, have succeeded in pushing away traditional notions of good and evil, and instead promoting the idea that criminals are not responsible for their actions. As a result, the so-called discomforts such as guilt and shame have essentially been eliminated and replaced with modernist subjective ethics. Even the language in the justice system has been altered to conform to these modernist theories. Prisons have been renamed correctional facilities. They are run not by wardens whose job it is to oversee the punishment phase relative to the crime, but rather by corrections commissioners who seek to rehabilitate clients, not prisoners. And the reflex reaction of the intelligentsia and many in the mainstream media is to struggle and contort to come up with a way to justify the criminal actions by some explanation other than an evil mental state. So that is, the individual has experienced, a cycle of abuse, developed some sort of feigned diminished capacity, or acquired a Twinkies problem. Garrido blames others for his crimes. His wife's lawyer is already on TV claiming she's a victim. The excuses for evil are more plentiful than ever. But amidst the evil of the Dugard case, we actually find some goodness.
Well, what is the bright spot?
The bright spot in the otherwise dismal story is found in the actions of an amazing female police officer who used her intuition to initiate the arrest of JC's accused kidnapper. This woman's name is Allie Jacobs. When Garrido walked onto the Berkeley campus, and I know you remember that campus, Michael, Jacobs, this police officer, questioned him because he had these young girls with him. He claimed they were his daughters. But Jacobs questioned the girls, and she wasn't comfortable with the answers. She said the girls had a weird look in their eyes. They were acting like brainwashed zombies. Jacobs said she was responding to the situation from a mother's standpoint. So she immediately called Garrido's parole officer, mentioned the daughters. The officer told her, this guy doesn't have children. Well, a few hours later, Garrido and his wife were in police custody. And JC and her daughters were free at last. So, even amidst the lumps of evil coal, sometimes you can find a hope diamond. And that's what it's like on the radio. Thanks, Michael, for providing a diamond of free expression on the air. Back to you, my friend.
Hey, thanks for the report, James. Okay, moving on. Sacramento, Tony, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Michael, greetings from all your fans born in 1981. Hey,
thank you.
Recently I went on a hike way up in the hills there and found a crystal clear, ice-cold lake, and I went swimming in it, and it was one of the most refreshing things I can remember in the past. I wondered if you were a swimmer, and if you...
I am. I'm a very good swimmer.
If you ever
I'm a former lifeguard. I haven't saved anybody's life, but I'm a former lifeguard. Yeah, I'm a very good swimmer to this day. And the question is what, Tony?
Do you take advantage lately of the ice-cold, beautiful mountain?
You know, you're raising a very interesting point. I've read that immersing yourself in ice-cold water, although it's shocking, is one of the most healthful things you can do.
No,
I have an aversion to cold water. I don't really like cold water, Tony. Maybe what I need right now is throw myself in San Francisco Bay. I don't mean off the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm saying pull my boat into a cove. It's 58 degrees, the water, though. That's the thing. It's cold.
No, go up to a lake up on Mount Lassen and take a dive.
Yeah, what's the water temperature in a lake up there?
I don't know, but it was perfect. Probably a little bit warmer than 58 degrees.
Okay. Well, I remember there was an area in Alpine Meadows, California, that's stunning. There's an area called Five Lakes. You probably don't know that area. In 1980, I was hiking up there a lot with family when the kids were young. I even was able to backpack one of my children on my back all the way to the top of the lake. You get up there in August, there's still snow on the ground, which to me is miraculously beautiful. And the lake, the ice is finally melted out in late August. The water is like ice water, you know what I mean, Tony? And at that time, Mrs. S swam in that lake. I couldn't even put a toe in it. Some people have a capacity for cold water. I don't have it.
You should try again.
Yeah, you mean maybe it'll snap me out of my malaise?
It might do something for you.
Yeah, it could give me a heart attack altogether. Or either way, it's better off than what I have now. Oh, God, I shouldn't get... Thank you for the... No, you got to be careful. I don't believe in shocking the system. I have my own exercise regimen. It consists in watching 5 to 6 hours of television after... No. I bicycle every day. I really do. I don't mean... You see, this is... I'm going to talk about exercise. Am I at a break point here or what? Where am I? I'm fine. I can talk for 3 minutes. Good. Thank God the advertisers came back. We don't know what to do. We have so many advertisers. I don't know when I can talk or not talk. God bless them for advertising. You know, a lot of guys dropped dead in their 30s way back when from excessive running. They would run and look at the watches. Bingo. Blowout. So I was a runner when I was in my 30s. I weighed, I was thin, low cholesterol, runner. Till one day I was running up to a waterfall. Every day I'd run to a waterfall. And I heard an inner voice screaming at me, stop running, stop running, stop running, stop running. So I thought I went crazy. So I stopped running. Never ran again the rest of my life. My body was warning me to stop running. And then in that period, that decade, there were a lot of very famous deaths of runners. Jim Fixx, for example, was a very famous runner. He wrote for Runner's Magazine. And he dropped dead while running. So you say, well, what does that prove? I'm not saying it proves anything other than the body is not made for continuous stress of this kind, the kind of people put themselves through with exercise. So as time went on, I started to study different methods of what's considered to be exercise. And the Chinese have it right. The ancient Chinese had it exactly right, which is the moderate approach to it. No excessive pushing of the body. At least that's what I interpreted it to mean. I mean, maybe it's my own interpretation. So if I bicycle moderately, not until I'm in a sweat bath and looking at a watch. I'm not doing it to sweat. I'm doing it to get some balance in my body. Balance is one of the most important things you can get in your body. So bicycling is excellent for gaining balance alone, even if you just do it to keep your balance. I've bicycled all my life, by the way. If I miss a day, I don't feel good. A couple of miles to town and back, go to look at people down in the mall, see what's going on, women, children, men, vendors. You know, it's like a touch of life. It's a real town. In a modern American suburb, the mall is actually our town, since there's no towns left to speak of. It's as good a town as any. So anyway, bicycle, look around, push around, get some, yard time, go back to the prison of the computer and radio. But when it comes to pushing your body, I believe that many young men have it wrong, and they really push themselves too hard. They push and they push and they push and they run for a certain amount of time. They look good, don't get me wrong. They're thin, they're lean, they're in good shape. But I'm not so sure that is so good to sustain for a very long period of time in your life. Moderate, moderate, moderate. And all you got to do is talk to an orthopedic surgeon about it if you think I'm making this up. The joints will go from excessive pounding. The hips, the joints are going to be replaced early on from the running. So there are other less, what do they call it? There's a word, less impact kind of sports that you can practice. But it's the same with weightlifting. You don't have to crunch weights for 5 hours a day. I mean, unless you're let's say a Navy SEAL or something like that, or an Army Ranger or one of those. Of course, you want to be as hard as a rock. But I'm talking about the average person who wants to keep reasonably fit after the age of a certain age. That's all. You don't have to overdo it. That has been my philosophy. And thus far, it's worked for me. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I think that everyone has to come to their own ideas about what's going to work for them. And it comes back to the jumping in a cold lake. Now, maybe that's good shock therapy when you're young and it wakes you up. It's certainly invigorating. But I think after a certain age, if you leap into an ice-cold lake, you run the risk of a shock that could be fatal to your system. Things change, the body changes, people change, and you have to change with your age. You have to change with the ages as well. Nothing significant in what I just said at all.
Savage.
San Francisco, ding, ding. Dan, welcome to the Savage Nation from KNEW. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'll tell you, when you struck a chord when you were talking about the moderate exercise, and you're absolutely right. About a year ago, a year and a half ago, in January of 2008, I was doing heavy squats, with my trainer.
Right.
And she noticed that my right eyelid was drooping, and I had ptosis and meiosis in my right eye. The right eyelid was drooping. My pupil was small. I called my doctor. He said, look, that's a serious condition. You got to get to the hospital right now.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, I got to the emergency room, and later they gave me an MRI, and I had a carotid dissection. I mean, that, I've all saw the move. When you're really pressing hard on doing heavy squats or any heavy movement, I was 40 at the time. And,
wow.
And I'll tell you what, yeah, I mean, it blew out the inside of my right carotid artery.
Well, right, because your body can, look, it's common sense that when you strain your body, let's use old, simple terminology, not medical jargon, not big words. When you strain your body, you're putting pressure on internal organs. I mean, in common parlance, right? And some of those internal organs would include the vascular system. And so when you put extra pressure, internal pressure on your arterial system, your venous system, in other words, your vascular system, you're liable to break something, right, Dan?
Absolutely, and I did. I tore the inner lining in my right internal carotid artery, right?
So how did immediate surgery saved you?
Well, I didn't need surgery. I needed to go on blood thinners for 9 months. I mean, and that stuff is just awful. I had to give myself a shot every day, and then I had to go on warfarin.
What were you on? coumarin?
It's called Coumadin.
Yeah, it's Coumadin. I know how it was. People don't even realize how that was developed. You know that I remember when I was studying pharmacology as a graduate student, I think it was a student in graduate school designed a rat poison that if you put it into the food, the bait, the rat would eat the food, and the poison that he developed was the progenitor, the grandfather of the Coumadin. It caused bleeding. The rat would bleed to death. Did you know that?
It's rat poison. Exactly, I did. And
very few people understand that medicines and poisons are only a matter of dosage. You know that.
That's exactly it. It's an old drug, and you're taking a controlled dose of rat poison.
Well, so today you've given up. The point of your story is a little different, though. It's about weightlifting and how it almost killed you. So obviously you've modified your exercise regimen.
Yeah. I don't. I don't push myself. I do more cardio. I do push-ups, things with my own body weight. I do weights, but more reps. Less.
Dan, when you do push-ups, here's another one. When you do push-ups, how many do you do? Do you do till you're gagging?
No. I'll do maybe 25 or 30, sometimes 50, but I don't do it till I'm. Why do that? No,
that's exactly what I'm getting at. Think of Tai Chi when you do any exercise. Think of gentle motion. Think of slow motion, easy on your body. The body's not made for it after a certain age. You're not a kid anymore.
Exactly, and even kids.
Well, Dan, you read increasingly of young kids getting heart attacks today playing ball. It happens even to youngsters today because of the garbage food that they're eating. Their arteries are clogged. But moving on. Obama addressed the nation's school children this morning. Many schools decided not to show it to students because they viewed it as an attempt at indoctrination. I'll let you listen to the president and decide what you think.
You'll need the insights and critical thinking skills you gain in history and social studies to fight poverty and homelessness, crime and discrimination, and make our nation more fair and more free. You'll need the creativity and ingenuity you develop in all your classes to build new companies that will create new jobs and boost our economy. We need every single one of you to develop your talents and your skills and your intellect so you can help us old folks solve our most difficult problems. If you don't do that, if you quit on school, you're not just quitting on yourself, you're quitting on your country.
Did you hear that? He wants kids to use their skills to fight homelessness and discrimination? If that isn't indoctrination, I don't know what it is, but it gets even more interesting.
Now, I know that for many of you, today is the first day of school. And for those of you in kindergarten or starting middle or high school, it's your first day in a new school, so it's understandable if you're a little nervous. I imagine there's some seniors out there who are feeling pretty good right now. With just one more year to go. And no matter what grade you're in, some of you are probably wishing it were still summer and you could have stayed in bed just a little bit longer this morning. I know that feeling.
It's astounding he's making sophomoric jokes with high schoolers. It's not presidential, but wait till you hear this. He talks about going to school in Indonesia.
When I was young, my family lived overseas. I lived in Indonesia for a few years. And my mother, she didn't have the money to send me where all the American kids went to school. But she thought it was important for me to keep up with an American education. So she decided to teach me extra lessons herself, Monday through Friday. But because she had to go to work, the only time she could do it was at 4:30 in the morning. Now, as you might imagine, I wasn't too happy about getting up that early. And a lot of times I'd fall asleep right there at the kitchen table. But whenever I'd complain, my mother would just give me one of those looks and she'd say, "This is no picnic for me either, Buster."
Quote, she didn't have the money to send me to where all the American kids went to school? Wait a minute, that's a lie. He was sent to Punahou, a private school in Honolulu. Whatever, his policies are very far from American, and he's parsing the truth. In other words, he's lying again. With God's will and your listenership, I shall return. This is the Savage Nation.
Savage.